Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to another episode of the Community Live Stream. My name is Chuck Tomasi from ServiceNow. I am the ServiceNow guy with the cool bow tie, bringing you another episode of Who Knows What. Maybe that's what we ought to call the show. I don't know what's going to come up in this show. We had a killer yesterday going into template fields and field values and encoded queries. That was a great discussion. I think it ate up most of the show, but nothing wrong with that. It was highly acclaimed. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, thank you very much. Before I get into that, I wanted to mention that my name is Chuck Tomasi. Been with ServiceNow for about 8 years, customer for a couple of years before that. My focus has really been around custom applications, integrations, and the platform in general. So that's where I will specialize as I go through this random collection of unknown questions and issues on the community that you see right behind me. I'll do this live. There's no commercials. There's no editing. There's no do-overs. Whatever happens, happens, and that's half of the fun. I do encourage you to get involved in the YouTube stream. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, you can find that over at this address. And like that, subscribe that so you get the notifications. If you find something useful in here, of course, give a little click. Good morning, Carolyn. We're just going to call this Who Knows What. We can interact live on the community this way. It's a great time. We also simulcast this on Twitch if you want to watch there as well. It keeps them around for a couple of weeks, whereas YouTube keeps them around forever. And I do put the links. I mentioned a number of things yesterday, and I will cover them. There was a few corrections to the events and whatnot that I had yesterday. So Twitch, YouTube, if you've got a question, post it on the community. Look forward to seeing it there. If it's something I can help move forward or give you an idea, then by all means, post it there. Make sure you put it in the right forum. There are separate sections. So if you're dealing with a discovery question, it would go in the ITOM section. If you're dealing with software asset management, it would go in the ITBM section. If you're dealing with a scripting question, it would go in the developer section. And there are topics in there. So if you've got a service portal widget Angular JS question, pretty specific, right? Put that into the developer, tag it with Service Portal in the topic, and people will be able to find it much, much easier. If you put things into the comments here, they may not get seen for a while. In fact, it's very hard to go back and find what that answer was or what that comment was. I will try to put comments into the description of this YouTube after it's been rendered and posted, all that good stuff, so that anything I mentioned can be referenced as easily as possible. But I encourage you, go there and get that taken care of. The developer portal over at developer.servicenow, lots and lots of good stuff. Let me see, I had that up on my screen just a little while ago. Bring that up. You can get yourself, look at this, you can get a free personal developer instance. And I do encourage you to read the instructions, because somebody this morning, I was looking through some quick notes on the community. They were surprised that they didn't have access to their instance again. They thought they had to do a password reset, and it turns out their instance was reclaimed. So if you don't use it for a while, it will get reclaimed. These are free resources we're making available to you, and there is a cost associated with them. And if they're not used, we don't want to be paying for something that's not used. Like any other good organization, you want to be fiscally responsible. So we reclaim those if they're not used for, I think it's 5 or 6 days. If you check in every once in a while, you'll still have that. Maybe it's 10 days. There's a link to the article in there that tells you how often these are reclaimed. But you get to use that for free on any of the latest releases, including Kingston, which is our latest release, came out in January of 2018. And you can actually, I have found out that you get early access to the releases. So a few weeks before the market launch or the public release of London coming up in Q3, you will have access to London a little bit earlier than that. So might be a good way to try things out for your organization. Do a little exploring, find out what's new there. There is a technical library of best practices and APIs and all the scripting information, which I will likely reference today and throughout the course of this discussion. If you're just joining us, welcome. This is the Community Live Stream. Got my cup of herbal tea, just espousing the virtues of joining the developer program at developer.servicenow.com. Online training, free learning paths, online and in-person events. This one doesn't count. This is part of the community, not the developer portion. And the developer community, of course. The share portal is now over there. Underneath share, you can find code snippets. You can find applications. This is sort of a public forum of places for people to share their ServiceNow creations. I've got a few of them out there. In fact, the one that I wrote when I was a customer and has been updated, I think the last update I did was in Helsinki, but I tested it. It still works on Kingston. He's still out there. Think about that. That's now coming up on 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. Crazy how well that application has survived and how many people are finding value out of it. So if you've got something that you find valuable or you like to tinker on the weekends or holidays or family vacations, oh, did that come out a lot? you may want to post it over there. That's developer.servicenow.com. Let's see, we did the community, we did YouTube. I think let's just cover real quickly the events again. I did have some corrections to those. Narrow this down, and then I've got the meetups on the other page because the meetup list was getting a little long. But we do have a guided tour designer about 1 hour after I conclude this broadcast. So at 8 a.m. Pacific time, we will be doing Tech Now episode 53. Again, links will be in the video, but by the time you see the video, might be too late. But if you're interested, send me a message. Here, I'll put it in the chat right now. See if I can get that in there. The link for Tech Now registration is HTTP. Oh, you can't put links in the chat. That's right. I forgot. But here, maybe I can do it without the HTTP. TN53 Reg. There. Oh, it removed it. How about this? bit.ly.com bit.ly, we're probably trying to be creative, /TN53 Reg, in case you were wondering. There, that's the way cool people do it when they don't want search engines to scrub their information. There are a lot more events coming up. I encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn. I post probably 2 to 3 new events a week, if not a day, that come through our social media team, and I try to reflect those and amplify them on LinkedIn and Twitter as much as possible. If you want to follow me on Twitter, of course, @CTomasi, just look for Chuck Tomasi ServiceNow on LinkedIn and you will find me. It's pretty easy to spot my icon with the red bow tie. The meetups list is growing longer. I do have some corrections on here. I told you I couldn't find the links, but the links to all of those, again, I will put those in the show, or go to meetup.com and look for ServiceNow Developer Program, and you will find a list to all of this information. If there isn't a meetup in your area, let us know. We can always work on getting you started with one. If there is one in your area, I highly encourage you to make every effort to go. It is a lot of good information to give you some insights, let other people know what you are working on, and learn what other people are working on and how they're approaching that problem, and just expand your knowledge in a more productive way to be more effective. All right, are we done? I think we got everything. We got the meetups, we got the events, we got the knowledge. I say we get started on the community. Let's go to the live screen. This is from my Mac, just off to that side. Thanks for putting the links into listing. I hate when people say they are going to and don't. I try. It's not that difficult to do. There are more creative ways to do it. I know there are some ways on YouTube where you can actually make sections of the screen clickable to take you to that link. You can also put up cards at the end. That will take you to those. I think you've probably seen those, usually at the end of a video when it says, hey, do you want to watch this next? Haven't quite figured out cards on YouTube yet. I know they're not difficult. I just haven't had a chance to dig into them. But anyway, we are here to talk about the community, and the way I like to get started every morning is to look for things that are unreplied. What's new? What's come in? What are people asking? And pop-up confirmation on P1, P2 incidents. This was just entered, has no view, and is a very common request, if not mistaken. We recently added a pop-up warning on all P1 and P2 incidents created to avoid them being created by accident. However, the pop-up also appears every time we click on the Save button or when we click the hover eye icon. How can I specify that I only want to pop up on the initial creation of the ticket? On submit, we'll ask you to confirm which means you might want to consider changing it to an on-change to verify that they really want that. So you might want to consider making this an on-change client script so it asks only when the value is populated. Default to P4, and if someone consciously changes it to P1 or P2, you confirm. If they decline, then you put it back to the old value. It won't ask when you save, update, etc. Otherwise, you're going to need a second field in there. Say, did I already ask them? Did I save that value to the save field? Yes, I asked them to confirm. It gets a little too complex. Don't over-engineer this thing. Keep it simple. All right, let's do that. Hooray. Desk bell's working. Good morning to everybody joining the live stream. Or good afternoon or good evening, wherever it is, whenever it is in your area of the world. We do this every weekday that I possibly can, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. UTC. We have our usual crew with their cups of coffee, I presume. Mine is herbal tea. That's my choice. You're welcome to it. You drink what you like. Just make sure you're drinking responsibly at work. Adding users to multiple companies. This sounds intriguing. This is the way I do it. Just pull apart things and see what looks interesting. Hi, community. We just went live with ServiceNow in our company, and there is a need to add a user to multiple companies and select the correct company on the incident change form. How can I achieve this? Thank you in advance. First of all, I need clarification. Are we dealing with domain separation? It sounds like you are using domain separation. Can you confirm? Ding. And I will keep an eye on the little icon up here in the corner, my inbox, to see if we get any replies. That way we can keep these discussions going during the show, and I don't have to reply to them after the show. How to set a value on a single text field or select box after selecting a choice from another variable. Variables, you could do an on-change catalog client script. I'm trying to script so when I choose an option in two different select box variables, environment and version, the target server variable will have a specific text or maybe set of choice. I use select box. Here's what I've done so far. Environment is DB environment, version is DB version. Did you... Okay, if environment equals development, environment is going to equal DB environment. Type the appropriate comment here and begin script below. I think you are missing something critical. There we go. Dylan got it 3 minutes ago. You want to do a get value of DB environment. That's the one. That's what I was going to go after as well. Okay, so if you haven't done client scripts before, client scripts run obviously on the client, on the browser. They are not run on the server, but there are some concepts that are the same and there are some concepts that are different. The concepts that are the same is there is a get value method, which is much like the GlideRecord current.getValue. It gets the value of an object. Remember, all fields are actually objects. Even though you can set them and sometimes get them with the dotted notation, you're actually getting an object. So you want to be careful. As I mentioned in the past, use get value wherever you can. It makes life a lot simpler. It returns the data types you request so that you can do comparisons of a string against a string rather than a string against an object. On the client side, you don't have a current object. It's just giving you whatever HTML, CSS, and JavaScript it can. Well, we give you a class called G_form to get your hands on whatever's on the browser. If the field is not displayed on the form, you can't do a gform.getValue. Sounds simple enough. I've been tricked by it before. You can't just magically say, hey, I'd like to get this field value from the table of the record in this table. The record's on the screen, so therefore, no, we don't send all of the record information, reference field values, display values, URL. We don't send all of, say, task 67 fields to the browser if you were to look at task and it only displays 7 fields. Whatever's on the screen, whatever's on the form, even if it's hidden, you can use UI policy and hide it. It's still considered on the form. It was sent to the browser. GForm can get its hands on it. GForm can get its hands on that object, and you can start to parse that apart. So what they were looking for is, I want the value of the environment variable called DB environment. That's the way to do it. So a little explanation. That one's already been resolved. Let's refresh this list. It's starting to get a little stale already. Good morning to our YouTube viewers and good morning to Twitch viewers. How to add prices on stack requests on Cloud Catalog. Tom question. I'm not brave enough to dig into that one. I'm not savvy enough with the whole pricing set. Best practice for selecting CMDB CI subtable for importing exchange room mailboxes. Sounds like a question we've run into before. Hi, I've had a provision orchestration for room mailboxes and active users. So users are already present in sysuser table, but we need to import room mailboxes. We're trying to import them to a subtable of CMDB CI, which should be appropriate. Any help or best practice for any, in general, the best practice for CMDB CI imports is to use the closest table you can. Find the table with the fields that match your attributes. If you cannot find one, e.g. cars, vehicles, let's just say vehicles, then you may want to extend CMDB CI or one of the subclasses that matches closest. In some cases, this is CMDB CI hardware. In other cases, it could be CMDB CI itself. You get to choose. Might recommend using a personal developer instance to prototype that, just to make sure you're doing what you want and everything works out fine before you go into dev and start mucking around with that. All right, and when I subscribe, I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but it's very much like the old community software we replaced back in February. When I reply, I'm automatically subscribed to that, so any replies will come into my mailbox. Additional classify being triggered. That sounds like a discovery question. It's in ITOM. User able to check out without providing the required fields of items in saved bundles service portal. Any good resources on rates for resource management? Robert Federick posted that this morning. Edit system status of business service incidents are not getting out of suspend unplanned end date. Incidents? Suspend? Sounds like you got a scheduled job that needs a incidents are not getting out of suspended planned end date. Okay, do you have any scheduled jobs that are looking for scheduled jobs or workflows that are looking for or working on the incident table to evaluate the planned end date? Planned, excuse me, end date time. The field itself doesn't do anything without some logic behind it. It's a bit like showing up to work at Google when you're not hired there. You're not going to get a paycheck just for showing up. Not one of my better metaphors, I'll admit. Columbia, Missouri Snug, June 19th. Hey, look, there's a new one. Just popped up. I did not see that this morning. Interesting. It was not on meetup.com. Can anyone help how to calculate count the days in asset table? Day counters are always fun. Can anyone help how to calculate the count days in the asset table? The field will be called days outstanding. We'll calculate the count days daily from the date the asset recovery field is changed from none to any other status. How to achieve this? Keep a date. In order to do this, you're going to need a date to go against. In order to calculate the days elapsed, you will also need somewhere, not necessarily on the form, but in the record, a date that the field was changed. That way you can calculate using gs.dateDiff. Type fingers. The number of days or hours, minutes, etc. from that date field to now. I want to consider making that a calculated field. Want to consider making that a calculated field. And since I referenced dateDiff, let's go to, not the doc site, developer site, and look for dateDiff. Method dateDiff, start string, end string, Boolean numeric value, calculates the difference between two dates. In fact, I would even make that a duration field. Let me add that to my comments. I also recommend making the, what do they call it? Days outstanding. Days outstanding. A duration field to make life simpler for date calculations. Big smiley, because date calculations, as I'm sure many of you are already aware, are always kind of a pain. They're not the easiest things to deal with time zones and durations and adding and subtracting and display values. It's we did a Tech Now episode almost a year ago that covered a lot of that stuff and how to get your head around simplifying that. I know that was always a challenge when I started. I haven't been ringing the bell. There's my personal developer instance, just waiting to do something, which I do have something I want to say later. Let's jump into another unreplied. Octa SSO, how to script which contains equations, formulas, or is there an easy way to do that? That just sounds interesting from the subject. Let's see what happens. Can't guarantee I can answer everything. In fact, anybody who claims to know everything about ServiceNow is lying. I'm just going to put that right out there. I never said I know everything about ServiceNow. Some people say, oh, Chuck, you know everything about ServiceNow. No, I don't. I don't. As you can tell from what I'm skipping over in this, I probably skip over 5 out of 6 questions. Hi, I was given a requirement to display the price depending on the environment and criticality have been selected. In addition, the price will vary depending on the size of database, which the value will be entered into a single line text variable. Can someone help me come up with a script for this, or maybe an alternative, better way to do this? So computation of prices, I would recommend calculating this on the server side. My first recommendation is to calculate this on the server side using a glide Ajax call from the client script. You check each field as it changes using, changes. I had some Chong beer last night from Thailand. Using an onChange catalog client script, and tell the script to recalculate the price field based on the new values sent to the server. More info on Glide Ajax. See if it's still there. Woohoo! There's the best practices. There's the best form. We covered Glide Ajax in several episodes of Tech Now, namely, we still name these? 5, 6, and 33. You are correct. That's that. Anything in the inbox yet? Nothing. I can't see. The messages in the way. I have one in the inbox. Let's go there, see what's happened. We get a response to something covered earlier in the show. Pop-up confirmation, Michael Fry responds. Your script is fine. Just check for the new record or not if it isn't a new record. I like that. Thanks for the quick response. I like that as well. Michael Fry is very helpful. There is an is new record. I don't use that method all that often. Very helpful. Quick follow-up to something yesterday. We were talking about Ambrosia was online. Don't know if she's out there yet today. And said, hey, what happens when you double-click on the list filter? And I happen to be using list v3 here, but I tried it. And then a colleague of mine, Jay Fries, said, it's not working for me. I tried it on my laptop. It did not work. Same table, same instance, same version, same browser. The only difference is the hardware. My MacBook Pro uses a trackpad, and when I double-clicked, it did nothing. He's also using a MacBook Pro. What you see on the screen is an iMac using a Magic Mouse. Why that makes any difference, I don't know. How a browser can tell click, click from click, click. If anybody's got any ideas, I'm all ears. But apparently it has something to do with a mouse. I haven't tried it on any other platforms yet, but if somebody's got a Windows machine, or you can hook up a mouse to your laptop and try it, see what happens. It's kind of wacky. I mean, I love the feature, but that's not universal at all. Kevin is also acknowledging that couldn't work for him either. What are you going to do? Nice feature, but I don't use a mouse a whole lot. I mainly use the trackpad. I've grown accustomed to gestures. They're a lot more flexible. Yes, I know there are mice that you can do the gestures on. It's not the same. Just not the same. Okay. That was my inbox reply. That was one of the things I was following up on yesterday. Let's keep going. See if we can dig into a few new ones. Boy, the questions are coming in fast today. Multiple email client templates. Email client templates, if you recall, are, I was just on the incident list. Let's take a look at that. There's an email client, and you can use the email thingy here if the attribute is set for email client under true. And here you go. There are also quick messages, which I encourage you to take a look at. Very handy feature. No code. You can put stuff in there. I don't know where the body of my message went. I think it's, there it is. Thank you for watching the show. You can put that in there. As far as templates go, it's going to dictate who gets CC'd, who gets the to, what the subject line looks like. I'm going to abort that. Let's see what they want to ask. I have two different UI actions on a custom table. Each UI action has different URL with different email client templates in which I'm calling the script includes to send an email. I created 2 different script includes as well, but when I click on any UI action, it picks the same URL. When I delete one client template, it picks the other one. Can you guys help me on this? If the code is not sensitive, can you paste the code? Yeah, that was my first question as well, is show me the code. All right, we're not going to be able to get very far with generalities in most cases. If you do post, make sure you post enough information to give us context of what you're doing. Technical details are often better. Instead of saying table A and table B, give us a table name. Then I can write a script around table A and table B. Otherwise, you're going to have to modify what I write for you anyway. If you've got script and it's not 6,000 lines long, trust me, I'm not going to read 6,000 lines of code, at least not yours. I might read mine. I might. But put that in there. It will help. Even if it's just the function you're calling out of the 6 lines of code. Ambrosia and I tried assigning roles to see if it affected anything. Did for her colleagues at work, but not when I tested on my PDI. Interesting. I'm on my PDI, Kevin, so I don't know exactly what the difference is. We're going to keep investigating this. I think it's a noteworthy feature. I'm going to try and go to our UI team and see what they have to say about it. 1/2 the hour. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Whether you are on YouTube or Twitch. Email notifications sending multiple times and pasting text multiple times. Let's see what we've got. I'm having some issues being reported by users. There are a few like this, but the most recent one. A user submitted a catalog item today. When it sent out the notification for that item, it also sent out a notification for that one that previously sent last week. Not only that, but it pasted the contents of the email twice. I had some issues like this last week. Some of the emails were pasting contents from previously submitted items into the email. Were they possibly using the cart? Raul, that's the same question. Can you share the code? Also, can you check if you've not used previous code anywhere? My reply is it happening every time or sometimes? If it's not every time, then you have to start narrowing down the variables. Is it user specific? Is it date specific, etc.? And so on. Could it be that they put something in the cart and forgot about it? Came back a week later and checked out with another item. I know I have to check this on Amazon all the time. So we sort of share between me, my wife, and my 2 daughters. With our shared family account. Done and done. Okay, got another response in the inbox. Let's go take a look at the inbox. Keep the conversations rolling. Somewhere I clicked. Click. Got to watch those little magic dots right up there. Add users for multiple companies. Oh, this is the question, are you doing domain separation? And the answer is no, we are a B2B service provider and imported all users and companies in our instance within the global application. Okay, so the original request was, I need to be able to add a user to multiple companies. Okay, the company field on the sys user record is a reference field. That means you can only point to one at a time. If you want to have multiple users in multiple companies, I recommend creating a many-to-many table. And it will show up as a reference list, related list. Wow, my mind was on reference fields. Related list on the form, after you configure related lists, of course. Let's get a reference to that called many-to-many definitions. Create many-to-many relationship. Should be under system definition, many-to-many relationship, many-to-many definition. I did hit search, correct? There it is. Go to sysm2m list. That's an interesting way to do it. Why do they tell us to do this with hardware? Wasn't it still under there? It's not still under there. Huh. Okay. Interesting. Why don't we have a module for that? Let's do this. Docs. Create a many-to-many. I know I should copy and paste. But fortunately, my typing skills are about equal to as fast as I can copy and paste. And I already had that in the copy-paste buffer. So there. Ding. Did I post yet? Oh, didn't hit reply. There we are. Another one bites the dust, or at least gets pushed down the field a little bit more. Show only selected list collector right bucket on request item form. REST API date and time range search query parameter. Well, this ought to be interesting. This is created on JavaScript GS date generate da 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 da. Okay. Is there a question in here? My response is, after my browser slowly catches up, what is the question or issue here? Or are you just stating a fact? Some people do that. Look what I found. I'd use that as the show title, except Craig Stepp already uses that for his podcast. One of his podcasts. He calls it Look What I Found. Additional classify being triggered. We already went through a lot of that stuff. All right, this is where I want to change gears. I need some sort of... There. All right, we already did that. We talked about following up on the breadcrumbs. Yes, because we needed some stinger segue music to go between segments. Just having fun today. Someone asked earlier this morning, is there a way to use the date picker and just pick a year? And this led to an interesting question that I want to discuss with you on the community in the live stream. And somebody's first question was, what exactly is the requirement here? What are we trying to do? The date picker, I'll admit, it isn't the best UI experience. It's difficult to go from year to year. Many times you'll see a double chevron and a single chevron. One moves between months and one moves between years. It is what it is. If you've got a date field and you just wanted the year, it's still going to store the whole year date object. In fact, it's actually storing the complete date object and only displaying the year under the hood. It's still a time value, an offset from the epoch, whatever it is. And if you just wanted to say, hey, what year do you want this to begin? Or what year does your contract expire? Or what year will you be 65? I don't know what the context is behind this. But I would recommend either a choice list, if it's a finite list of things, and I put this in here. A choice list lets you control what the user sees, so they can't fat finger it. A date field, you can put in a date, and it's still going to store 2018, but it's also going to store a month and a year. And it will default, if you could do this with the date picker, it's still going to store it as January 1st, 2018, or January 1st, 1972, or January 1st, 2037. It's storing the full date. And then the next question is, well, I don't want the month and the year to display. Well, then use a choice list, and you have full control over what you can display, eliminate user errors. But if your list is going to be, say, longer than 15 or 20 entries, nobody likes scrolling through choice lists or select lists, as they're called in HTML. I know that that's the way that they typically display countries, and it's not a lot of fun when you're filling out those forms, is it? When you live in the United States, and the United States is near the bottom. Scroll, 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 scroll. Or you can type U and get close to United Arab Emirates and then start scrolling. There's a user experience you need to figure out on what you're trying to do and how you want to present that. So choice list is one option, but if it gets longer, you might even want to consider a reference field. Make yourself a table of dates and include, I always do this when I create a table, even if it's something as simple as one field and it just says date. In fact, I'm going to do this for you since we've got a little bit of time. I'm going to create a new application, go into Studio, and I'm going to answer another question at the same time that I had. I'm going to create an application, and I normally do create custom application for a reason, and I will get into that in just a second, but I don't want to get sidetracked yet. I'm going to, this time, start from scratch, and I will call this Date Picker. Okay, let's create a date picker. Apparently, no, I don't want to. I'm just going to call it DP. I don't like long scope names, and I don't like truncated scope names either. That's just the way I am. If you have control over saving some of these names, the other thing that drives me bananas is when the table name and the scope name are repeated. So it's X underscore or whatever, safety underscore issue is the application name, and then they create a safety issue table on there, or as they did in the loaner request in the if anybody's taken the developer course, the scope name, and then they were truncated as well, so it was like loaner under request underscore loaner underscore request. That's a terrible table name. I pity the poor person who has to start scripting that thing. Like, just call the app loaner, call the table request, be done with it. So let's create a table, and I am going to double click on the right thing. I will call this date. It's just going to be a list. Yes, I can call the table date. It's not going to extend anything. I will create a module, and I'm going to create a couple columns down here. I'll back off the font size if you don't mind. In fact, I think I can squish this down to give me a little more real estate. Yeah, that's nice. And I will call this the date field, which will be of type string. So I don't need to fill that in. Shortcut for you if you didn't know that before. You don't need to fill in any of these fields if they have the default value, and the default value for type is string. So I'll leave that, and I'm going to make that the display value. So when I reference this from a reference field, that's what gets displayed. How wonderful. And I also want to make an active field of type true false. Very common practice that I do when I create new tables. Now, let's say we've got years going forward. 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay. Next year, they say, we don't want anyone to pick 2018 anymore. It's in the past. It's an invalid date. I don't have to go and refactor my code. I don't have to go and redo a choice list. I can just disable it because I'll show you the table will have a reference qualifier on it that references these records and say, only show me the ones that are true. So all I do is uncheck the active field, and it's no longer available to pick. Very nice from a maintenance standpoint and a user experience standpoint. And can I do these in order? How is it going to sort them? Well, they'll sort them if it's a reference field any darn way that it wants. But we can always let the user choose that sort too. So I've got my table there. Now let's have a table that references it. And we'll call this, I don't know. I have no imagination this morning. We'll call it Community Live Stream, CLS. And we'll have a date field on here, which is a reference to my date field. Date table. Wow, that was interesting. My macro jumped in. And we can include a number. Let's do something like this. We'll do an auto number. control, auto number. That looks good, a CLS record. And my answer to my other question was just, the answer to my other question was just retrieved. And I will tell you what that is in just a second. I noticed on the screen. Let's go back here and find our date picker app. I'm going to show you one way that you could do just years only. I did refresh that, right? Come on. Date. So I've got dates, and I'm going to create some new records of what people can pick. Let's do 2018 is active, save that. 2019, insert and stay. 2020, insert and stay. I've been doing a lot of insert and stays on some recent demos, so it's very comfortable. That'll work for my dates. Now, my other table did not get, unfortunately, oh, I actually did. I'm going to get to that in just a sec. Okay, let's create a new record. This is CLS001, and it's a reference field, and I can pick the dates. You say, well, Chuck, they're kind of sorted wonky. Fine, sort them this way, and now you're good forever. So there's a record. You say, well, in 2019, I don't want to pick that date. So you go back to this guy and say, let's make this reference field, configure dictionary, put a simple reference qualifier on it that says, I only want those records where active is true. Easy enough. I'm now filtering out the inactive dates, which are going to be here. Let's say 18 is now false, and 21 is also false. We haven't renewed our contract that long. What you make up your own story. Now when I go back to the CLS record, here are some of these notifications so I can see past my own front porch. I click date, and 18 and 21 are no longer available because I have a reference qualifier that says I only want the active ones. Very easy to do. So that's one way to get the years. You prevent the user from doing crazy things like hello and saving that because it's going to say that's not a reference. You lose. Okay, match not found, reset to the original. Let's not do that. All right, this second thing that I had today was when I created that new application. And I went into Studio and I said, File, Create Application. And I mentioned I usually pick this, and there's a reason why. And I've been curious if this has been fixed yet, and I just verified it has not. If you say start from scratch, which seems like the logical thing to choose, you will pay a price. This is a bug that I've noted, and I keep pinging about every 6 months to see if it's fixed in the current release or the next release, and apparently it's not fixed in Kingston. What happens is, look at the role that it created. Normally, if you say create a custom application, it asks you, do you want to create a role for this? And it defaults to application name.user. This table it created a role. Let me look under here. It created a role called date user. Okay. It also created one for the other table. Why do I need a new role per table? Seems inefficient. Start with simple security. And if I have 32 tables in this application, I'm going to have 32 roles. And worse yet is the CLS roles, the CLS ACLs all reference the CLS user. So now I have two different roles, two different practically personas, two different sets of ACLs. And I'm like, wait, no, these people obviously, you need to, you need, I'm not saying want, you need to do a security review when you're building your applications to understand what are the personas involved, what actions or what access, what entitlements do they need to do that application. In this case, it may be perfectly fine that every table should have unique permissions on it. In another case, it may be that you want to start with a baseline and say, this is my date picker app. Let's have everybody start with the dp.user, not dp.tableNameUser. I don't know why or who thought up that more permissions were a better starting place, but it just seems a little confusing to me. I'd be curious to hear anybody else's input on this, but it's also not clear that that is a key difference between those two options. It seems like on the surface that start from scratch just lets you build the scope name, whereas create a new application lets you optionally create the table at the same time. So when you do, I'm going to do this again, create application, and you say create custom application, you put in the name and scope, which is exactly what start from scratch does, but it also defaults to, it gives you a menu, it gives you a user role, and that user role is applied to all ACLs on all tables for create, delete, update, and create, read, write, delete, and create. Let's say it that way. And again, you have an option here to start creating a table which inherits that chuck.user, not chucktable.user. I don't understand the logic in that. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. We're all learning here. Let's not create that application. But I normally start with the second choice. It just makes managing permissions a bit easier when you get further down the road in building your application. There's your free tip for the day. Stick with the second option until we finally figure this out. I will check periodically, and I will ping our platform business unit to see if and when they plan to fix that. Whew, anything else in the links this morning? Yes, there is another one. So that answers that. Does start from scratch still create a new role for each table? The answer is yes. Thread from yesterday that I missed, and I know I've mentioned this on a community quick tip on a previous Tech Now, but I wanted to mention it here as well, is that somebody was trying to do a query on SysTemplate, and they were not getting the right information. There's something a little different in the SysTemplate. Let's go to scripts background instead. Scripts background, show you what they tried to do. Very simple script. I'm going to put that in my text editor so you can read it as well, with a little bit of indentation and a little bit of white space. Okay. So we do a GR template, which says, I want to instantiate a new GlideRecord, then query all the tables. There's no filters in here. We're not doing an add query. Everything is everything. There's not even an order or a limit or anything. Just show me all the records. Tell me how many rows you got. And then it goes through and says, for each record, print the sysID. Now, here's another classic case where get value is needed. Okay, I'm going to change this. You know what? Let's see what happens first. Let's run it in the global scope. And it says, I got 50 records, but it doesn't print any sysIDs. There's two issues I have with this. One is get value. The GlideRecord is a pointer. Okay, I'm not going to get into pointers and references and all this other stuff. But if you don't use get value, you will see 50 entries with the same sysID, and it's all going to be the sysID of the last record. Right? If I were to do this for incident, I can show you. And you might start to get the idea of what's wrong with this script in a sec. Oh, paste that one. Okay, it made me a big fat liar. Oh, you know what it is? It's not the print that's the issue. It's when you want to start saving it. So let's say I wanted to save that into list as an array. And then I do this, and I say list.push grtemplate.sysID. And you will see clearly there are two different things going on here. And then at the end, I'll say gs.print. Oh, I feel dirty using gs.print. I'm sorry. I'm going to info. It works in both global and scope. Print only works in global. And I know we're in global, but use best practices whenever possible. GS info, that way you don't have to flip between am I scoped, am I global, whatever. And I could say list.join. Let's put a new line in there for every record. Now watch what happens. I have the printy part. There are 59 incidents. Here's my new and updated one. It prints the 59 sys-IDs, and then it prints the array. And the array has all of the same sys-ID, which is the last one. 1050E6E is this one at the end. Looks very similar to the second to last one as well. The reason for that is because you didn't use get value. This is pushing an object, and the object happens to be associated with a pointer, so you're getting the same reference over and over and over again. You're not copying the value. If you want to copy the value, say it with me, use get value. Get value, get value, get value. I should put it here as well. In fact, I will. It's not going to change the behavior of the first line, but it will definitely change the behavior of the second. Now, I get my print of all of the sys-IDs as the unique values, and I get them pushed into the array as unique values as well. You can use an iterator on instantiate for GlideRecord object for each array element, then use .get if you want to hold it into GlideRecord. If I understand you right, Mike, you're saying put the GlideRecord, wait. I'm not understanding you quite right. You can use an iterator and instantiate a new GlideRecord object for each array element. Not if it's stored in the array improperly, right here. If you move this instantiation inside the while loop, then you don't have anything to iterate over. So in this simple case, it's not going to work that way. There are times when you want to instantiate your GlideRecord inside a while loop. For example, if I've got a list of dates and I want to find all the records that match each date, I could do that. That would be a case where I'd put it inside. Okay, getting back to systemplate though. We're running out of time and I don't want to do that. Let's do this. They had an issue which was, let's get rid of the array stuff. We're done talking about get value. Sorry, I had to jump on that soapbox one more time. Okay, here's the script. Go back, paste it, and we see 50 templates, nothing printed. Okay. The reason for that is because right here. Like, well, what's wrong with that, Chuck? It looks perfectly viable. And it is normally perfectly acceptable to do that. But if you were to go and look at the sys template dictionary, again, studio, thanks. It's not what I asked for. I'm either typing too fast or I gotta slow down. And you look at the dictionary, configure dictionary, you will find a field called next. I don't know what rocket scientist thought that was a good idea, but that's what's messing things up. It's confusing the method next with the property next, or the object next that represents the field. Therefore, in order to fix that, ServiceNow has a workaround. It's called _next. This is actually what was posted in the community. I'm just giving you a little insight as to what's happening and why it's happening. Let's go back to scripts background. Try it out. It's one of the few tables where that happens. And it's freaked out there. Hold on. Let's go back to global. Here's my sys-IDs, now printed all happily and merrily, and away we go. So if you happen to be writing in an application and you make a table called next or query, there's an option for you. There is a method called _next and _query. Are there any other system tables that do that? Yes, there are. Sysdictionary.list. Let's bring up the dictionary and give it a quick query. Well, this will be fun. I think column name is called element. Let's see where it equals next. Systemplate's the only one. Let's do our double clicky thing just for fun. I know it's not any quicker. And I believe there's a table called query. I don't know if it's in a plugin or not. Oh, there's several. And it uses them either as a string or as a reference field or as a conditions field. It's represented a number of different ways. A radio button choice. That's lovely. So if you were to try and query these tables, you would have to use underscore query or would go, oh, what do you want to do now? So be aware of that. Those are, avoid naming your fields. Don't make this problem any worse than it already is. Avoid naming your fields the same as the methods that are in there. If you're not sure, where do you go? You go to the GlideRecord page and say, tell me, oh GlideRecord reference, what do you know? And how do I avoid naming things crazy? Okay, Glide aggregate might be another good one. I wouldn't name my fields add active query. Okay, that would be a bad field name. So be aware that that's out there. We'll work to get you out of those things. That is going to take care of it for today. I am going to sign off. Wish you all the best. Fade into the background, maybe play some music later. I will be online in 1 hour with Tech Now episode 53. If you haven't already registered, go over to bit.ly/TN53, where the T, N, and R are uppercase. TN53 Reg. I've got a link in yesterday's episode show notes, but I also posted it near the top of the chat. I don't know why that's so hard to say. Should be a fun episode of Tech Now, but I won't be doing most of the talking. I will be answering the Q&A, and I look forward to seeing you there. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Until then, take care, have a good day, and I'm going to fade away. Bye.